I do have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm working on that big job. I got everything in your sales calculator setup thing, right?
Okay, we're doing the job cost training today.
Uh, okay, sweet.
Yeah,
Okay,
your
well,
timing's perfect.
yeah, I'm gonna ask it regardless. So I have
Okay.
some people written down, like myself. I want to pay myself to do some of the work, right?
Yep.
Kind of where I'm at. Do I write what my company charges per hour or what I'm paying myself?
You charge like whatever the hourly rate is, that's your cost, right? So if you pay a guy 35 bucks an hour, right? So let's just jump right, like
Yeah, because
we'll come
yeah,
right into
that's
this.
sorry. Because I was
Yeah, no
working
problem,
on
man.
it the other night. And I'm like, I as a company charge 65 an hour,
This is
but
this is like one of the most important lessons that I'm going to teach probably anybody here is
sweet.
understanding these numbers completely. Okay, so let's get into this. So first things first, to answer your question, you would put in your hourly rate is. Okay, so if you're paying a guy 25 bucks an hour, you're putting in 25 bucks an hour.
Okay, so it's what I'm paying them.
That's right.
Got it.
Yes.
That
Okay.
that was the big question, but
Okay.
awesome.
All right, so let's jump into this. Guys, I want to make sure that everybody is
Sorry.
pricing their jobs correctly and that we have a way of really checking our prices and our offers. Okay. So what we're looking at here is a job cost form. You guys can all have a copy of this, and I'm going to go through it. Some of you guys may be doing some of this, some of you may be not, but job costing and knowing your numbers is an absolute responsibility of every owner here. And job costing is the absolute um, center of all of your management accounting practices. Okay. The reason why is it's real time data that allows us to not continuously make the same stupid mistakes over and over again. Okay. So let's jump into this. The first thing that we're going to look at, first area that we have to really be aware of is labor burden. Does anybody tell me what labor burden is? Anybody?
It's all the shit you gotta pay that you don't pay the person.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
everything after an employee's wage. Okay, so that can be a whole bunch of things. And I have a calculator for figuring out your labor burden. But let's say, you've got taxes, you've got uniforms, you've got, all these extras that go into a employee, as well as holidays, all these other things that increase the hourly rate. So paying $25 an hour, you're not actually paying $25 an hour. So I'll use this 13% as an example. All right. This would be like in California. So there's 13% of cost on top of that 25 bucks an hour. Does that make sense for everybody? Yeah.
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 Okay. Again, we're going to work through and get your labor burden calculator set up. You should be always calculating and knowing exactly how much it costs you per hour per employee. All right. The next is our overhead factor. All right. Now, again, if you're not aware of what overhead is everything that goes into running your business. All right, that's fixed. Okay, so they're fixed costs. So truck insurance, that isn't exactly that can't be billed directly to a job. So that's like your truck insurance, that's your trucks, truck payments, that's any other insurance you may have. Like those are all fixed costs. They don't, you still have to pay those regardless of if you do work or not. Okay. So my rule of thumb here in all the years that I've been doing this, the lowest overhead factor that I've ever seen legitimately was about like 24%. Okay. And now that's a guy working out of his house, with his, working out of his truck and basically paying his costs. All right. The other way you want to look at this is like, even if you have a very, very low overhead, if you want to be competitive, you're going to fake it till you make it. Right. So anywhere I'm going to say, I mean, if you really get into it, some guys have 50% overhead. All right. And the thing about this overhead number that we're going to work with you guys on is that this changes. All right. That's another big misunderstanding. So I'll give you an example how this changes. Um, in overhead, let's say that you had planned to do $100,000 that month in work. Okay. and you came in at $80,000 a month worth of work. Where does that loss get added? Where do you think that loss goes? Or where should it go, should I say? It goes into your overhead. You got to absorb that, right? It's coming out of your profit. So if you're doing this properly, you're adjusting and doing an overhead recovery rate every single month. It's a very simple calculation. I'll give you guys all the tools and stuff to do this. Don't get overwhelmed or sweat it. It's very, very simple once you get the concept of it, right? But ultimately, there's one major rule that all CEOs need to follow. It's a principle first and a rule second. So the principle is the CEO's sole and only job is to earn a profit for the shareholders. The rule is that the CEO can never lose the shareholders' money. Okay? Ever. You can never lose the shareholders' money. So that means that in order for you to be responsible, you're going to do your overhead recovery on a monthly basis and make sure that any losses from the month prior, or, again, even if you're made gains, maybe you adjust your overhead so you can be a little more competitive. Does that make sense? Anybody unsure of what I've just explained there? Okay. All right. So next, we're going to get down into the labor side of it. Again, this is where we were just discussing, but ultimately we have our labor. So these are employees or staff members. All right. And what we want to do is be able to call our shot. All right. Every job, you need to get into the business of calling your shot. Right. So if you have estimated for, 14 days on a job and it takes 28, all right, well, that's a pretty big wound to lick, but if you don't learn from it, you're doomed to make the same mistake again. The other thing you want to be able to do is set the score for your team. All right. Can't tell you this enough. If you learn these skills now, you will save yourself decades of pain. All right. And I use this analogy all the time, so I apologize if you've already heard it. But if we were to have a game of hockey, all right, but we didn't keep score, all right, and there was no goaltenders, would we be playing a game of hockey anymore? No, of course not. Right. So think about your team the same way. If you put them in a situation where we're just out there, skating around, are you going to get the same intensity as if it were a full game with referees, goalies, nets, we're keeping score? Would you get the same intensity? The same commitment? No, of course not. All right. So very easy not to share with your team the score. Very easy to do that. And then, basically what you're doing is setting the precedent that, hey, if I do an outstanding job, all right, no one's going to notice. And if I do a really shit job, nobody's going to notice either. All right. So what do you get? If you don't get any shit for doing or you don't get any credit for doing a great job, and you don't get any shit for doing a shit job, what are you going to get? What's that all equal? I'll tell you what it equals. It equals semi-par, mediocre at best, even from A or B players, right? You're not going to get performance. Okay. You're going to get complacency, and people are going to quit your business often. Okay. High performing teams keep score. Bottom line, right? You need to keep score for your team. You need to be able to give your guys shit when they're screwing up, and you need to be able to give them credit when they're doing great. Okay. As we move down here, material is another area. Again, I recommend that when we're doing our estimates that we're breaking down material so we understand our costs, especially on certain jobs. All right. And the reason why is you can imagine it's setting a precedent, right? When we price a job, we want to make sure that everything is coming in, and we've got all of those costs as well for ordering and everything else. Okay. So you're going to fill out all your material. Other costs. Other costs can be things like rentals, subcontractors, any additional expenses that are not labor and material related, but can be billed to a job. Okay. So I'm going to have my subcontractor cost in here. I'm going to have any equipment that I've rented, any disposal bins, anything along those lines. All right. That can't be directly put under material or labor. Okay. And again, you're going to see why in a second. So when we, yeah, go ahead.
I got something real quick. When it comes to your labor, not your labor, your materials and your subcontractors, are you bumping that up any?
I'll get into that right now. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
sweet.
So, but you're not doing it in the line item. Okay, so in here,
that's it.
yeah,
Yep.
you're going to report exactly how much you're going to pay that subcontractor and how much he's agreed to pay. Okay.
Cool.
The reason why is that we want to look at our jobs from a cost all in base. Okay. So now we've got our labor, we've got our material, we've got our other costs, any direct cost. All right. We've added in our overhead. Okay. And then we have any sales commission. These are all what we call below the or above the line costs. All right. So all those jobs can be directly contributed to the job. Okay. Meaning you haven't made any money yet. All right. So we are breaking even if we charge 143 grand for this job. We're breaking even. That means you made no profit. Maybe you paid yourself the wages, but you've made no profit. There's no money in it. Okay. Now, here we get into what we call markup. Now, markup is not to be confused with margin, and we'll talk about margin. But for a rule of thumb here, guys, your job should be anywhere from 20, okay, to 33%. You can be an order taker, meaning you don't have to have great skills at selling if you're going to put your jobs in that range. On the other hand, all right, so if I can give you the scenario, if we did $1 million worth of work, on the low end, we're going to get $200,000 of net profit for our business in our bank account at the end of that. That would include paying all the expenses for our business, paying ourselves if we're doing the work. All right. But that guarantees that's saying this is how much my business earned. Okay. Same thing when we're saying about if you sold a job, should you be paying yourself yes.
Sure.
All right. This is going to give you real job costs. This is going to give you a real number that you know if you're making money or not. Okay. And that's a big part of the game is understanding if you don't come from it from this objective, okay, it's very easy to guess. It's very easy to assume. And you're doomed to kind of make the same mistakes repeatedly. Okay. Now we get to the place where we need to charge our price. All right. Like I said, safe zone, 22 to 33%. Above that, you're going to be into professional selling. Expect to get no on every single job. All right. And be able to work through objections well, have a good sales process, have a lot of marketing. Again, you want to work to get above that. All right. Anything below that, down to about 10%, you can get by. You can survive. You will not thrive or have a business that will operate without you. It's statistically impossible. Okay. And again, if you think you're going to grow through volume, you are wrong. All right. You got to grow first through profits. There are companies out there that can if they have massive volume, but they didn't start there. Okay. So do not, under any circumstances, lower your margins lower than that 20%. I'm telling you 15 if you're in a desperate situation. Okay. Anything below that, just go get a job somewhere. It's not worth the risk. Just go get a job. All right. You're just pretending to be in business. You're not really in business. Okay. With one exception to that rule, I got to mention some general contractors, okay, that are doing cost plus and time it, like they can get away with a little bit less because of the ticket size. So if you're building $1 million house, you know, I'm still going to say it's 10 and 10 minimum, and that's not even like really killing it. But in subcontracting, like in a general contractor situation, you know, it can be argued you can get away in the 10 to 15% range. And some guys do very well there. I would never do it myself, but it's, you know, something to keep in mind. Now, another kind of a way to look at this whole lesson that I'm trying to show you is really think about your scalability here. Okay. If I'm not earning enough profit on my jobs, all right, and I'm just providing myself with wages, all right, look at all the risk that I'm taking. Look at all the liability that I have. Look at all of the sleepless nights, all the things I got to do. Look at all the investments I've got to make. All right. And we're not charging enough. All right. Very easy to kind of get off and not understand it. If you don't learn from the core, all right, it's going to be very hard to grow or scale or even see the point of being in the business. You can grind it out and work hard. That's about it. Okay. So take this stuff to heart. It's very, very important. So the other area that you need to be able to call is, like I said, your dates and your start dates and end dates. All right. And the reason for that is you're looking at a job. Again, it took 14 days versus taking 6 days. All right. We can't look at the same profit the same way. All right. If my turnaround on my profit was scheduled for 6 days and my team brought it in at 14 days, you damn right some heads are going to roll, right? This comes to your cash flow as well. Again, I can't stress it enough. You want to be able to protect your cash flow. You want to be able to sleep at night. You want to know how much you have in backlog. And if you are, overbuild or underbuild, all of this stuff comes from your job costing. This is your early warning signs. Okay. You can run a whole business from these forms. I assure you. Okay. So now we get to the other side. We're going to call this the sales to production handoff. Okay. So you've locked in your estimate. This is what I think it's going to cost. Now we're going to set it into reality. Okay. How many of you guys have estimated a job, thought you were going to make a lot of cash and then just lost money and you don't know why?
Of course.
I have.
All right. Okay. Is that acceptable?
No.
No.
All right. So how do you possibly not make that mistake again?
You gotta track where
Tracking
the
your
loss
costs.
was.
Right. Okay. So again, I'm going to share with you my principle is that a estimate to production should have no more than a 2% variance either way. Okay. Meaning you didn't lose, like anything outside of 2% loss or gain. All right. Is something to be concerned about. All right. And what I mean by that is when you really get good at this, all right, you can call your shots. It makes everything else that you're doing make sense. But until you can do that, you're not going to be running a stable business. It's going to be very hard. Okay. So let's take a look at what I mean by this. Let's take Junior's hours. All right. So Junior, the laborer, we'll call him. All right. We brought him in, we paid him a bit more, $30 an hour. Okay. We'd scheduled for 48 hours. Junior came in, he crushed it. He only took 38. All right. My variance though, -5 in the green. All right. So we're up 5 points. Now the old senior, we'll call him lead senior Grumpy. He comes in, we're paying him $50 an hour. All right. For 48 hours. And he decides to take 60. All right. Anybody see the problem here? All right. So what's my lesson? What am I not going to do next time? If you're looking at this.
Hire Grumpy.
Yeah. Or I'm going to get Grumpy to move his ass.
Yeah.
And catch it before it becomes a problem because I'm tracking. So halfway through, I would have already known that, right? Like if our job is supposed to be completed at X, Y, and Z date, and it's not on track, damn right, I'm going to be on that job site pushing some fucking people to bring it in on budget. Okay. Now,
At what point do you know that the job is off track? Because from your estimate to the actual is at the end of the project. So at what point do you?
Nope.
No,
Negative.
It's not. Okay.
Negative. So if you're doing this properly, you're tracking like you've got a scheduled time on your calendar. Remember that time blocking thing I said? Right. And you're updating it. You can update this every day, every week, every hour. It doesn't matter. Right. So now you know how much you have left. And again, I use a chart here so you can see like I've got this much labor left. I've got this much material. Here's where I need to be. So you can see how the job is tracking. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now, again, if I've allowed this to happen, all right, the pain of it's even more severe because, you add in the labor burden to all of this and it's become quite a bit more expensive, right? Okay. So again, we can make data-driven decisions from this. Okay. Now moving down into material, guys, I'm going to tell you a well-known secret. If you guys are going in and let's change this up so it doesn't look so ridiculous, but say, I want to say $1,000. Okay. I'm going to tell you a little secret about suppliers. All right. Suppliers make their money off nickels and dimes. All right. Their best customers are guys that are unorganized, incapable of seeing their bills in time. All right. And don't dispute charges or don't dispute or, ask for discounts. Okay. Those are the best clients that they have. And the reason why is that you could call your supplier or sales rep, and let's say you had a material thing for $987. Okay. Supplier one. All right. You go in, you put in you order your material, and you get your invoice for $1,000, or let's just say, yeah, for $1,000. All right. What's the difference?
$1,417.
Yeah, 1%. And they will up their price. You remember that overhead recovery discussion we just had? What do you think happens when a supplier can't collect from their accounts? Do you think they absorb that loss?
No.
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 They pass the costs on to everybody. Okay. If you let them. All right. And I promise you, if you do this, if you were ever to track what you got locked in confirmed price for versus what you actually paid, you're going to find a 1 to 2% variance every single time. Okay. Electricians, plumbers. And the reason is it's a very well-known thing, is that suppliers have to make their money back. Like, they can't lose either. They work on razor thin margins, all right, higher volumes. Okay. So the guy that's just coming in infrequently, or that's, just ordering from the desk, is paying a full pop price. Okay. Now the guy that's a little bit smarter, all right, is locking in and using a purchase order, confirming pricing and getting competitive pricing. All right, is the guy that's going to get the better deals long term. All right. It's also a better way to bargain or to work with your supplier. So I'm going to share with you my third principle here. I have an 80-20 rule in my business. All right. Meaning that I want to work 80% of the time with the supplier that I like and that I've chosen for that year. All right. That service me the best. Okay. That I feel confident in. All right. Even knowing that it might be a 1 to 2% difference if I were, but what I do is I have 20% of my business shared with 7 or 8 other suppliers that can offer the same services. Okay. And I use a method called trust but check. Right. And how do I do that? Is that I have, and again, this is getting easier and easier. If I have any jobs, you've got all your labor, all your material laid out on your estimate, you get that job to go ahead. Great. How much harder is it to flip this off to 3 suppliers and be like, give me your price. Tell me how much this will be for this. Okay. And I'm going to compare those prices. All right. And again, what's the difference of 1 to 2% on a job? Let's think about it. What's 1 to 2%? I'll tell you what it is. It's high interest credit card. That's what it is. Okay. So take that to heart. Now I'll tell you another unknown secret. Every single supplier, all right, is willing to negotiate. That's their job, right? There's very few out there that I know of and that I've encountered that are not willing to negotiate. So a couple things here, all right? Ways to get into your good books and be in a place of leverage with your supplier. Pay your bills on time or ahead of time. Okay. And that's the first thing. If you can pay your suppliers, because what's their problem? What's their issue?
Cash flow.
Receivables.
Cash flow. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I've done. All right. When I'm doing really big jobs and stuff like that, I go to my client and I go, hey, Mr. General Contractor, Mr. Developer, Mr. Whoever, in my contract terms, I'm going to give you back 1% if you pay your bill within 15 days. Okay. He says, hey, you know what? That's great. That goes right to my bottom line. I'm going to take that. And I'm going to tell you, good clients will, because they got the money, right? It's not a problem. I'm going to pay you in advance. You've incentivized that. Okay. Now I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go to my supplier and go, hey, Mr. Supplier, I want to be a really great customer of yours. If I pay my bill within 15 days, will you give me 2% back as a rebate? Oh, hell yeah. Let me shake your hand, rub your back. That's exactly what we want. Perfect. I have that deal set with every single supplier I have. I have 25 in my Rolodex that we use regularly. Okay. That's your first thing. So if you can pay sooner, you want to leverage that. What's the difference of 1 or 2% on a job, right? You're catching them on the supply. Now we leverage that. I'm a fast payer. Okay. That gives me some power. That gives me some ability. The next thing that will is being able to look ahead. And let's say you get a month, 2 months, 3 months in backlog. Okay. You take your material lists, you take the things you need to order, and you go in you figure out your pricing and you negotiate. All right. I have this much volume in this. I have this much volume in that. And you decide if you're going to give them the next 3 months of your work. Now, this is when you start to grow, but you can do it at a smaller scale too. Common items, things you should inventory. All of this data is right there for your taking. So what I do with my suppliers is, again, I'm going to say, hey, you know, this is how much you can count on me for this quarter for you know, steel. You know, we just ordered 190,000 pounds of steel. All right. Now I did that knowing that it's going to be 90 days. That's the next 90 days of my inventory. We buy it up cash up front because I know I'm making more money than a credit card. It's a great place to invest your money, right? I'm turning that over very quickly. Okay. My supplier loves me, but what else do I get that's different than everybody else? What do you think I get? That's makes it unfair.
Additional discountings.
Unbelievable discounts. We're not talking small discounts. We're talking 40, 30, like to the point where they're basically doing it with me at cost because they know they can count on my cash. They're selling me that at cash value or very little because I'm I'm handing them a check that right there. Boom, here you go. No problem. Like it's an exchange, right? For them, again, their biggest problem is cash. No one's, and especially right now. Okay. So leverage these things. If you can get your customers, and again, if I want to build a business on cash flow, all right, and I want to really be smart about it, and I'm working with a higher clientele, do you think they give a shit paying you, you know, all the material up front? No. Second material's there, I pay. Boom, done. Great. You can even set it up without negotiating the 1%. You could just make that part of your contract. The second material hits your job site, I want 50%. Right? Easy enough, right? I just taken 2% to my bottom line on my material, right? So again, you guys will never, ever understand how much over a lifetime, over a month, over a year, over 10 years you will make unless you job cost, right? When you can actually say, hey, you know what? I made an entire person's salary in one transaction, literally, okay? Where do you think you make the money in these businesses? It's the nickels and dimes in these smaller things. And you're not going to ever pick up on these things until you're able to see your numbers. Okay. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with anybody?
Yep.
Yeah, but coming from like the remodel standpoint, like where would you find that I'm not ordering 190,000 pounds of
No, and I
steel?
certainly didn't start there either, right? So here's
Yeah.
the thing. Again, pay attention to what I said. Like, let's say you have a supplier that's giving you credit, okay? A hardware store, like whatever, okay? When you can still call like the material you need from every job, all right? And you're giving that in bulk. Now they know what to order. They're ordering specifically for you. Okay, you've confirmed to that material. First of all, you won't have any material delays. That's a win all on its own. Second to that, you're showing them growth and you're showing them that you're an intelligent like business person. They want to do business with business people. Okay. Again, the risk for them working with contractors is contractors are famous for going bankrupt, not knowing their numbers, not being organized. And again, they have to take security on that. All right. So if you go in and you don't show any, like they have to look at every account as an opportunity and a lifetime value and all these other things, right? They have to assess their risk in you. All right. You're coming to them and reducing their risk, even in small quantities, 2,000, 3,000. They're going to go, this guy is better than the clients that are doing 1 million, 2 million. He knows his shit. I'm going to give this guy, like, I want to see this guy go. And again, it's a negotiation, right? You're trying to get leverage with your suppliers. You're not trying to, you want to build a long-term relationship, but it all comes through knowing these things. What are you going to, if a supplier takes you out for lunch, all right, what are you going to discuss? What are you there to do? Right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
So yes, to answer your question, this takes you not much more time overall, but this is what running business does. Get good at this. If you can handle it at the small scale, when you get to bigger scales, it'll be that much easier.
So even like, let's just say buying a tub a month, right? Like a tub shower setup, like do a bathroom a month to the same person, still try and work the same.
Yep, absolutely. Right. Okay. And
Makes
again,
sense,
you're
makes
going to look
sense.
for the little advantages, but it's the principle and the practice that you get into. Like there is, again, like at a smaller volume, you got far less on the table, but over time, you're like, if you can keep this on, you're going to kill it. All right. Your other costs, disposals, things like that. Same rules here, guys. We're looking at where did the loss come from or where did the gain come from? Okay. Specifically. Okay. Now, when I get down to this, to the end of it, all right, if all of our jobs are done this way, can we see where the problems happened?
Mhm,
Right? Pretty easy to see. Black and white, would you say, or red and green?
mhm.
Okay. So did I hit my NARB? No. All right. So in fact, all right, and let's just say I changed my price, and I'll show you what the cost and where you want to really be aware of this. All right. Let's take 187,000. Let's just say that was my invoice. Okay. But what's changed is my expenses. Instead of making a 30% net, I made a 23% net. Okay. So, at 7%, we might be like, that's still a win. I would disagree. All right. The reason why I would disagree is because now I actually am required to do, I'm going to take a whack at this, but it's about 23, 24% more work to pick up from my original target. All right. So if I said I want to earn $200,000 this year from my sweat and labor on my $1 million worth of revenue, and I'm not accepting a dime less than that. All right. And we start pushing in jobs like this. Now I need to do $1 million, I have to do basically an extra job to make up for that. Right. And it's easy. We get into the habit of discounting and not realizing the impact of those things. Okay. So let's talk about another key area where I see a lot of contractors make major mistakes. Change orders. Who loves change orders?
I do.
Okay. Do you
More
know why
profit.
I love change orders?
I mean, more money.
Right. You can
Yeah.
and you can't. So there's the bleeding heart contractor that gives the customer the change order for, I'm going to do it at my cost because I'm a nice guy. It
Yeah.
was just a couple of extra time. Well, my friend, we're going to come to principle number 4. We are in a business that makes business transactions. All right. A change work order is nothing but a business transaction, and it should not be influenced by the person, the job, or the customer. Here's what you have to think about. A change worker should always carry a minimum of a 50% markup, period, full stop. If you are anything less than that, my friend, you're in for a world of pain. Okay. The reason why is you had to stop that job. You had to change your course. All right. And then you're underbidding it in any way less than 50%, I'm going to say is an underbid. All right. You've actually now lowered your overall profit on the job. And I see it all the time where the job was profitable if you didn't take on the extra. Who's in, like, think about it. It was the customer that, created the inconvenience, and they're being rewarded by it if we're not charging that. Okay. So your change work order, nothing less than 50%. And you stand there and don't let them bitch, let them chew. But the bottom line is you had to stop and change your course. And there's an expense to that. Your overhead, everything else, that stuff doesn't stop accumulating. Right? There's not more days in the month just because you have a change work order, is there? No. You've got less. And now you've got to change your schedules and you've got to do all of these other things. You need to get paid. All right. And the minimum in the rule, nothing less than 50%. All right. So you come down here, you do the same thing, and you mark that bad boy up to 50%. If the customer is pissing you off, and if you've got variances here, all right. So old junior here, senior guy screwing you around, and we got to do this change work order. Well, you know what? The house doesn't lose. My job as a CEO is to earn a profit for the shareholders. All right. So why would I forfeit this opportunity to regain and make up for my mistake by underpricing the change work orders?
So Jay, this is all markup, right? Not margin?
It's all markup. Yes, I have to
Okay.
be clear about that.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll discuss margin and that I can put it into the calculator as well. But yeah, it's not really like 30% would be like 36.6 for margin, that to get your margin rather for markup. So
Yeah.
you'd have to mark this up 36.6.
Yeah, no, I was just, when you said about 50% change orders, I'm doing a 50% margin on change
Yeah,
orders.
exactly. So, and again, I use the markup just because like
Yeah.
for guys, it's easier to understand. When you get into the
Yeah.
margin, it gets a little more confusing. We'll touch on that, but
Okay.
again, if you can keep within the markup range,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm like we're blasting them on it. Like if it's
Yeah,
not
it's
100%, right?
it's a penalty. Like
Yeah.
it's
That's
cost
right.
times 2.
Right. And I'm picking up any losses that I maybe accumulate
Yeah.
or think I'm going to accumulate.
Yeah.
So again, these are opportunities for you guys to bring these jobs in and recover from something. Okay. So
When you
Yep.
guys charge for change orders? Right away?
right
In
away.
the end?
Okay. So here's the thing, just like everything else, sales wise, speed is your friend. Okay. You need to have your change order. If you're not at a digital point yet, all right, you're getting those signed. Get them signed immediately while the opportunity is there. All right. If you need a day to do this, these are Excel sheets. You can very quickly calculate a change work order, but speed is the name of the game. All right. Do not leave your change work orders till the end of the job because you have excuses. I didn't have
Well,
time. You will never ever get paid for your services, and get them signed, get them agreed to. All right. Get them under contract. It's not real unless you've got a signature and you've
Yeah.
got leverage with that client.
So
Okay.
when it comes to a
I
change
actually
order,
I'll take
Yep.
it a step further, Chris, and I'm not doing the change order until it's paid for.
That's right.
I've
Very good.
heard of that too. So do you do a
Yeah.
whole nother job cost for a change order?
Yeah. So you would do
Whole
another
nother-
piece, and then what you do is you just click in the change work order amount. Okay. And you're adding that to the total job cost. So this is your change order amount. Okay. Because you
Okay.
want to keep a very good, like this is a whole other pricing that you always want to know. Like there's some companies that just make their money on change work orders, I swear. Like especially in the government stuff, right?
So you would fill out an entire job cost
Yeah.
spreadsheet just
Yeah.
for
If you,
the change order and then add it to the change order amount.
correct. Like if you're doing it all
Oh.
this way, right? Because
Yeah,
it's easy
no,
to
it's
whip one
nice.
out and you're gonna add in what your change work order was. Okay.
Cool.
So a couple of, again, higher level ways to look at this stuff is number one, we want to always be creating a scorecard for ourselves. All right. We're going to talk about that in 1 second. There's only one thing that I found in this world that doesn't in one way or another lie. All right. And that's your numbers. That's your facts. Okay. Everything else we can have an opinion on. We can have, somebody can lie to us. They can cheat us. Your numbers don't lie. All right. If you want to run a business and you want to have clarity and certainty, all right, we have to be accountable. Right. So, and this accountability is contagious. Meaning I'm an open book kind of numbers guy, and my teams know, at least my upper management, middle management know our numbers. Okay. And I'm not afraid of that. Like at the end of the day, I get to tell them what my profits should be, and it's their job to get it, on par. All right. I want you to think the same way. All right. You're going to hold yourself accountable to your job costs. When we're going through job costs, all right, we need to make sure we know where the mistake was made, and we've got to learn a lesson. If we fail to learn the lesson, we're doomed to repeat it again and again and again and again. Okay. So my job score goes like this. Were there cost overruns? Yes. Why? Explain. Okay. Were there change work orders? Yes or no? Right? What happened on those? Time analysis. Did the job come in on budget? Yes or no? Black and white. Is either a yes or a no. Okay. If no, then why? What am I not going to do? Until you think about it, until you really focus in on it, again, you can't go fast. You guys can't grow unless you get these numbers down, right? There's no room to do, especially if you're in a smaller state, any job you're doing that you're losing money or breaking even on is a setback in time. Okay. It's a setback in time, and it means it's going to take you longer to get to your destination. So you decide. All right. At the end of the day, quality, if you're having callbacks, if you're having to do rework, all right, it's a yes or no question, all right, and why? All right, customer satisfaction. If you are doing these jobs and you're not getting 5-star reviews, why? All right, you think you're going to live off referrals and happy customers, all right, but you're getting 2 and 3-star complaints, then we know we have a break in our process, in our system. We need to be accountable for that. All right. And the reason why is, like I said, when you get to the team level, all right, how do you hold a team accountable? How do you get them to how do you get it so that they fix their own mistakes and you don't have to be there, standing over them saying you shoulda, you coulda, right? How do you do that? How do you be able to walk away from your business and know that, what you've promised is getting delivered? This is how I'm showing you exactly how I've done it in my business. Not overly complicated. All right. But a difference of a variance of 2% either way triggers this immediately. And it's called a job autopsy. Okay. We go into every detail, everyone that was involved, estimators, salespeople, the crew leads, the superintendent. We're sitting down. All right. And someone's got some explaining to do. All right. Now it's not a finger pointing competition. All right. It's black and white. All right. It's very, very straightforward. All right. And again, I'm going through it and we're going through each point. Was it a subcontractor? Was there other issues with suppliers? Like, again, when they get to the end of it, they should be able to say, okay, what did I learn? What mistake did we make? And what aren't we going to do again? Okay. Same with you. All right. If you can't take accountability, or if you can't get to the end of this process and say, hey, you know what? I underpriced the material on this job. I'm not going to do that again. All right. Why did that happen? Because I didn't check with the supplier what the material was supposed to be. All right. I just went ahead and bought it and didn't get a price. Like, all these things will start to be very obvious to you. Okay. The lessons that you've learned. Now with my team, there's been a fuck up. I'm going to make sure that they tell me how it's going to be fixed. I'm not going to tell them how it's going to be fixed because I didn't make the mistake. And it's not my job to solve that problem. It's their problem that they need to solve. Okay. So I make them give me 3 things. All right. Give me the recommendations. How are we going to prevent the same mistake from happening again? And I'm either going to accept that or I'm not going to accept that. All right. After that, it's in writing. All right. Becomes a policy, becomes a procedure, becomes a way that we don't cross this bridge again. All right. And it's highly effective. The reason why, it's empowering to the people that have fucked up. That's what I've been told. That's what I hear. All right. It gives somebody an opportunity to explain. We're not playing the blame game. We're not including assumptions or biases. We're just looking at the facts. All right. And the facts, the clearer you can make them and the better your scorecard is at telling the facts, not the bullshit, not the stuff that doesn't matter. You cut the gristle down. You're going to find that you're going to get to, what actually matters, right? How do we make sure that doesn't happen again? If you can do this with yourself, then you can do this with others. If others can do it, then they can do it for you. All right. And now all of a sudden we have a team that's able to actually think for themselves. Imagine that. Right. So the fun part about this is I've taken very low level managers. We'll say my crowning accomplishment in terms of this is I have a 24-year-old running just about 10 or 12 crews. All right. Very young, very, in a lot of people's opinion, they would be, not suited for the role, but you know what? He's learned very quickly and he's adapted to this. And I'll tell you, he's the best project manager that I've seen in decades. Okay. And again, picked up on this right away. All right. He's able to hold crews accountable and he gets respect from them as well. All right. So if you guys can, even get this one tool implemented into your business, all right, that's going to be your very first aha moment. All right. That's going to be your very first control that you have. All right. Because at the end of the day, like I said, everything can be an illusion, but your numbers won't be, right? You either did or you didn't. Does that make sense? Everybody with me on this?
So I have 2 questions.
Sure.
So when you're doing the change orders, because I don't usually I went out and bought an iPad because I wasn't able to keep up with you guys on my phone.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate my computer or my iPad, whatever, on the job sites that I go to.
Perfect.
So when you're doing change orders, do you stop what you're doing, pull out your iPad, and work on all of this on the at the time, or do you do this at a later date? And then the second question is, when do you do your scorecard? When do you sit down with your team and you say, we need to go over the scorecard for this particular job?
So,
because the way that
yeah, go ahead.
So because the way that my jobs have been running, I get done with one job late at night, and then I'm up going to the next job early in the next morning. So when do I have time to do that scorecard?
Yeah, so this can be all done real time.
Okay.
So again, like if you got an iPad, all right, you can use a Google Sheet, all right, as you're going. If you wanted to make this your daily your checklist, all right. Again, how many hours do I have left? Like you're basically telling yourself where you're at, right? So like again, if I've budgeted for 48, all right, and I'm coming in, I've got 26, all right, 26. And I'm only 50% done that job. Okay. Is it easy to tell what you need to do?
Yeah.
How much time do we have left? I can go to my chart and figure that out, right? Am I over or under on my material yet? So like it'll tell you, actually I've screwed up the sheet now. So it'll tell you what you have left, like labor actual versus estimate. It can tell you exactly how many hours you have left. Your material's locked in, so you got that price from a supplier. Like again, you use it as a little, like it's a scorecard, like that you use real time. The reason I recommend these, because your QuickBooks or your accounting stuff is behind, right? That takes time. That's data entry. This doesn't. You already did the estimate. It's right there, right? When you sold the job, you've estimated. Now you're just gonna. This all moves over too. So like when you're running the sheet, it all moves over to the other side. All you have to do is fill in the hours. That's it. And it's already set up. So once you've got it set up, boom, it's all there. It's just 2 entry points.
So when something comes in, let's say one of my subs, something happens and whatever they find, they're going to be a little bit more expensive, right?
Yep.
What do I just tweak it on the other actual?
Yeah. So again, what I would like, if you're doing the
$1,500 over, just go over the other cost actual 1,500 and
yeah, and if you just got a subcontractor, right, that you didn't like, that's a change worker that's coming in to do it, you just put it in the other cost on your estimated side, right? So like you can keep it the change work order in on the side. You would just put CO1, right? Sub.
I mean, do I do a change work order for the sub?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But in terms of finding your price for that and building it right into the thing, you're going to update this first. And then I'm going to go to my change work order form. I'm going to go, hey, Mr. Client, change work order. If you want this done, pay me now. All right. And away you go. Right. But like very easy to kind of add your math to that. Right. So I've estimated for this much, right? Let's say his cost was, we'll take one. He was 1,000. All right. And I'm going to charge 1,500. Seems about right. Boom. 50%. Oh, opposite, sorry. Or 1,000. And I'm going to charge 1,500. Okay.
And the customer pays you that 1,500 right there on the spot.
Yep, right there on the spot, because you don't want to leave them to the end. They won't pay them. They'll argue and dispute them, right? Okay, so my change order goes in there, right? I've increased that volume. I made my $500. Okay. So, I mean, when we get into this a little bit deeper, if you guys like, I've got like, you can advance from this. Like we can build a change work order form into your slot if you want. Like I got all those things too. Don't sweat the details here, because it gets pretty much more advanced as you get into other jobs. I've got some guys that've got these things built right out. But I mean, ultimately, this is all you need for most of you guys. Like if you just did this one thing to keep track of your jobs, you're gonna have a world of difference, and it's a part of the challenge, right? So I'm a data driven person. You got to show me your numbers, right? Show me your play cards.
So Jay, if you're working 90 days out, your overhead's always going to be a little off, right? So if you're doing the recovery rate based on the current month and you're billing for, or you're estimating 3 months out.
But you mean backlog?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you know, if I'm estimating a job for January right now and I've figured out my current overhead recovery rate, it's not necessarily going to be correct. So are you making
so
that change?
It's going to be very careful. So like, let me give you I'll give you the SOP for the overhead recovery. The way that we do it, all right, is like, because we have we have seasonality to our projects, right?
Yeah.
So like whatever the accumulation of the month was, let's say, because I think my break even's like 350K, like that has to be billed, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's say we came in at 300. All right. Well, I'm going to add that into my very next month's in pricing. So
okay, so it's not going to catch up for 3 months.
It's not going to catch up, but I'm not like, again, like whatever I'm pricing that following month, when it converts, right, it starts to, so it does fluctuate up and down. But it's the current pricing that, and again, it just, you're not going to be bang on, but it's going to make sure that you're not taking devastating 5 or 6% losses. It'll be a 1 or 2% variance at most.
So then what happens if you had, your overhead, so you had a bad September, you made an adjustment to your overhead for a job that's being sold in January, and then in February you look at that overhead and it looks, are you looking at like a accumulation of the year, like your fiscal year?
Yeah.
Or
I'm also looking at my like, again, it can be a simple calculation depending on how complex your business is. For you, I'll give you the formula that I use. And again, like you're gonna also,
my concern is if like January, because you bumped up the overhead to recover September, and then February you might drop your overhead way down because you forgot about that change.
So again, a little different in your situation, and I would look at it by quarter.
Okay.
Probably like I would take the average of the quarter, because your jobs are like staged out further.
Yeah.
For most guys that are doing, quicker turnovers, like mine, like again, my stuff's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
And we're not doing jobs over 6 months or anything silly like that, right? So the faster your turnover, the sooner you would do that recovery. So I'd probably do yours on the quarter.
So that leads me to the next job. For the scorecard on the jobs, would you break it down to like stages, like framing, or like almost like inspection stages?
Yeah.
And then issue the scorecard to the guys at every inspection point?
Yep, absolutely. So again, it's all about communication. This should be your Monday morning meeting. Okay. In my business, what I'm doing, and for you guys to know, right? And we have the meetings call for next week, but my Monday morning meeting is always in our job supervisors have everybody on the call. All right. And they're looking at that job cost. They're reporting back like, every week on where they're at, and that those conversations are being had. And then on the job site again, that, we're tapping into that so that they can push the crews like that. If you don't give them that, it's almost impossible to know where you're at any point. Right.
So how far down would you share the sort of the job costing? Would you put it right down to labor?
Yeah. So the chart that we use is that chart that I was showing you. Like we send that out to everybody on Monday morning for their jobs. Right.
So there's no percentages or numbers on it.
No.
It's just we're estimated to be here and this is where we are.
That's right. So and here's how I work it in my business, and I'll share this with you. So like one of the things on the sprint, when you guys, like if you can build these structures in, even when you're like, it's better that you build it before you have employees, if it makes sense. All right. Yeah. But what I do is on the card, all right, is every job that we do has an incentive. Okay. So we say to the crew leader, all right, hey, Mr. Crew Leader, we're gonna give you a 1% incentive provided we get a 10 scorecard. All right. Project manager, everyone, we've got a $1,400 budget for an incentive. Now that incentive goes into a pool, all right, that gets distributed at every quarter. All right.
Okay.
And then it's based on the employee's review and their ranking within our company. So our crew leader gets the lion's share, like 50% of it. All right. And then the rest is distributed amongst his crew members, provided that they showed up on time. They did like what they were supposed to do. So, and it's all on your employee review process. All right.
Cool.
And then you bring this in, and guys, I'm not exaggerating. Like, this is the gas that like will push you past all your competitors, right? So like even employees I'm bringing in that are bringing their jobs in, below a subcontractor would, and I'm getting the quality, and I'm getting the the image and everything else. All right. And what they don't realize is like, it's really just the hours that they've saved. So if I've budgeted for 48 hours and they brought them in at 26, all right, I'm putting that into a pool. At the end of the quarter, the company gets half, they get half. What have I just done?
You shared the wealth.
Right. I shared the wealth, yes. Okay. Yeah. But again, think about it. Like, my cost was already my cost. Like, and the way I look at it is, if I hired a subcontractor, all right, this is what I would pay. I take that number and break that to the hours, and then whatever they've come in below that. But I've also done something smarter than that. Like, if they're over on another job, they're not getting rewarded for that. It's the whole accumulation of that quarter, right? So remember my rule, you don't lose money, right? The thing about it is, if you learn to price properly, you'll realize as a contractor, your only job is not to lose money, right? Like, you've already made profit. You made profit when you sold the job. If your profit was 30%, okay, then you're fighting tooth and nail to collect your 43 grand. And anytime you can exceed that, well, that's good. If I can get my guys happy to be productive and efficient, and they're working towards that, which our guys are, and they're tossing out guys that are fucking that up, like the old technician would be tossed away. All right. And we're looking at that. It becomes a game. All right. It's gamifying your business. All right. And watch what happens when you do that. Like, that's how I'm sitting here. Right. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't do this.
Do you share the scorecards of the crews amongst the crews then?
So again, the pool that we share, and I've given you that SOP before. I'll share it with everyone else as well, the employee incentive program. So that's like a open book, but they get the chart, right? So they know here's where we're at, because I hold them with material too, like waste and everything else. Like, that's all, like, it's open scorecard. They get the estimated versus the actual, no numbers, no nothing, so that they know if they are getting something into the pool or not. And then the pool gets updated. That's it.
And they know what the pool number is on a daily basis or weekly basis.
Yeah, on a weekly it gets updated. So like, they just get that. And like, anybody that wants, most guys don't care. They don't, they're just happy. But again, it forces accountability. It forces it, because you're looking at it under a microscope on a daily, weekly basis. And for everyone, you have to think about the WIIFM question always. What's in it for me? Yeah. If you're going to ask somebody to work efficiently, harder than they normally would, how do you motivate that, right? And it's not just money, guys. Like, this is like, it took me a decade to get this correct. It's not just the money. Like, if I were just to offer the 1%, that's a gift, right? No one appreciates it, right? It's like free money. If you don't make it based on something, right? First of all, you're not going to get them. It's the equivalent to going out and playing the game of hockey without a scoreboard, right? They've got to know what is it exactly that we have to do. And I make it clear, right? These are the things. If I've got a perfect 10 job, all right, that goes into the pool on top of whatever hours they've saved, right? That all goes in. On average, a crew leader will make 5K a quarter. That's a pretty nice incentive. I'm in Ontario, so that's also taxed differently. Yeah. So, it's a win-win all round, right?
So can you just change the numbers real quick to show me what the chart would look like, say mid-job?
Oh, I think I've corrupted it now. I'll give you the actual.
Okay.
This is, the actual sheet will jump, like adjust up and down. So the line here is where it should be, right? And then it's going to show you if it's over or not. I've used this too many times, so I've broke the codes in it.
Okay.
The two things.
Yep.
Real quick, anybody I hire under like a 1099, that's like subcontracting, their labor burden 0, right? Or would I put them under? other? Because like I've hired people under 1099 hourly.
A 1099 is labor though. You're in the US. That's
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
employee.
Yeah, but I don't pay any of his stuff. Like I don't employ him.
No,
He's
sir.
a
I don't
he's a
actually. It's
sub.
American. I won't argue with you. I'm not 100% sure on that. But
Okay.
1099 is considered like in-house labor. So that like a
Yeah.
subcontractor is
Nah, not here.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what if I'm paying a subcontractor hourly? Does it go under the other estimates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I'm gonna give you some rules to the thumb that are pretty standard across the states and Canada. If you are using a subcontractor, you are signing a subcontractor agreement, okay, up front. That can be a blanket agreement. I do it with my subs, all right, that basically state they're an independent and you give them the rules of working with you. I'll share that with you guys as well as a resource so you can see. It's a subcontractor agreement. Now that allows you to and always get him to invoice you, all right, and you approve that invoice. So he needs to give you an invoice. All right. Do not, under any circumstances, just pay him, a check out of your bank account without an invoice, without any subcontractor agreement. In every place in North America, they'll come in, they'll do an audit on you, and they will determine that he was in fact an employee everywhere in North America.
Okay. Well, and I think in the States too, there's a reporting duty for the employer for their subcontractors to the IRS.
Yep. Absolutely. There's a whole bunch of regulations.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd almost be working, you got to figure you're going to have to report to the IRS for this sub. So you might as well, if that's going to cost you some money. So make sure you get that covered.
Okay. Yeah. Because there's forms instead of a W-2, we call it a 1099 form. So that's what we pay people who we hire, but we don't pay any of their disability taxes, none of that.
Yep.
So for us, that's a 1099. And then number two, the labor burden. You said you had a paper for that or something?
Yeah. So we have a calculator for it. So I'll include it in the email out. It's in the Money Master modules.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would be very nice. That's something I've never looked into, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll get you the labor burden calculators, all this, but there's 5 major forms that we're going to be going through over the next calls, all right, that are going to be basically your whole management accounting system. Okay. So this one's the first one. It's the and again, you're going to see right away that all the things that work off of the job costing, there's so many procedures that are attached to this, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet.
All right, guys. I hope you got some value from our call today. Hope you move quickly and take imperfect action this week. All right. I hope you guys are keeping track of your time. I hope we're getting on top of our schedules. Okay. And we'll see you next week. If you have any questions, reach out to me and I'll be firing this email off shortly.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Night.